Hi, I am Anita at Life in This Place, and I am going to be showing you how I grow fodder. Now I'm growing fodder for my rabbits, and what it is basically is I'm just growing barley seed until it is nice and tall and food for my bunnies. Some of the things you have to remember is that you want to grow it in a cooler room. So it's not room temperature, it's a little bit cooler, say like 18 to 20 degrees or something like that, Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. You need to watch for mold, and so there's a few things that you can do in order to prevent or at least mitigate the mold. So my husband's being silly over there. Okay, so what I do is I start off with just a quart jar. It's a 1 liter jar, and I have my barley seed over in this 5-gallon bucket, and I just put roughly half cup, 2 cups of barley seed in my jar, and that's what I'm going to sprout. That will fill a dish pan full of barley greens that just 5 inches tall, and absolutely full. The rabbits love it. So I'm going to move my phone and start with that, and I add water. I forgot a spoon. So I just fill it up with water, and we're gonna fill that up and stir it. Thank you. Stir it up, and I'm just trying to clean it first. So this isn't going to be my soaking water, this is just my cleaning water. My seeds are not cleaned, they are just from, my neighbor grows it, and I get it as is from his bin. It's not clean seed. And so there is a bunch of straw and empty seeds and light seeds that aren't going to sprout, and they have floated to the top, and I'm just going to skim those off. I figure anything extra that's in there that isn't going to grow is a possible mold going to happen. It's going to start rotting, and we don't want mold, so I am just going to get as much of that off as I can, and then stir it up again and bring up some more. There we go. And once I have a lot off, it's going to be impossible to get it all off. And stir one more time. And it depends on how clean or dirty your seed is, that you're just going to play with it. You just see how the water is dirty. I'm just going to pour some of that water off, and that takes some of the chaff and light seeds that float to the top off as well. And I'm going to add more water and do the same thing. Oh, there's Beverly. Hello, sweetheart. And then I'll just pour that off. You're gonna try some, sweetie? Beverly likes to eat the fodder as it's growing. She likes to eat the barley at about day 6 and 7, just when it's starting to look all very, very pretty. She comes along and will pull some of them up and eat them. Thanks, babes. Okay, so now you're really in the way. Thank you. There you go. So, if you want to look at my growing sprouting sprouts video, it'll show you how I do this with sprouts. But so yeah, this is just a window screen, okay, and you can put that over, add a rubber band, but I also have these sprouting lids that fit perfectly on a quart jar, and I'm going to use that today. I use this to show you that it works just fine. And just put the rubber band on, pull it tight, and now in order to and just slow down the mold spores. You kind of just suppress them. This is hydrogen peroxide, 3% hydrogen peroxide. I just got this from the dollar store. And what I do is I just add some, I like to call it a couple of glugs if you don't have the pour spout, but maybe like 2 tablespoons. And then just fill it up with water. And there we go. And I'm just gonna let that soak for about 8 hours. Just let those seeds soak with the hydrogen peroxide and water. In a few minutes, you'll start noticing that there's bubbles rising. You know how hydrogen peroxide bubbles, right? And that's just it reacting with the dirt and the germs and the chemical, or not chemicals, but dirt and germs and stuff that's in there. And it's killing them off, which is awesome. But I don't know if it kills mold spores, but it inhibits them anyways. Do you want to grab the other one that's by the sink? It's to the right of the sink. Yeah. Thank you. Now this is one that I did yesterday. This was my soak overnight last night. And so I poured off the water this morning and I added more water and poured that off. And so then I just left it on the counter like that. And it's just to get some oxygen in there and stuff. But I just pour water in it and I rinse it twice a day. Pour water all over the table. Just fill it with water. Give it a little shake. And this is just water. This isn't with the hydrogen peroxide. The hydrogen peroxide is just for that initial soak. You pour the water off. You want to get as much of this water out as you can. There you go. And then that will just sit on my counter until tomorrow night, where I will put it into a dish pan. So after you have soaked your barley seed in water and hydrogen peroxide for 8 hours, then you obviously drain it and then you sprout it like you've seen. If you haven't seen, I have a video on sprouting, and so it's just the same idea. You just rinse it twice a day, and we're gonna let the barley sprout for about 24 hours after that initial soak of 8 hours, 6 or 8 hours. And so here it is, all sprouted, and this is my growing tray, and it's just like from Dollarama dish pans. They're just $2 each. They break easily, but it's still functional, so why not? And all I did was drill 8 holes, not directly on the bottom, it's just kind of right on that rounded part. And I'll show you why in a second. And it just goes inside of another bin that has no holes. And so that one catches any water that might be spilling, and it will. So I'm just going to add water to my sprouts. I do this in the morning after it has been sprouting for, it is now 24 hours it has been sprouting. I add water. And I just dump it in. Dump it into my growing bucket, growing pan. And I'm just gonna add some more water. And I'm gonna pour this second cup of water, and then I'm just gonna flatten it out. Like I said before, my barley is not super clean, so I'm just kind of looking for peas. I have a lot of peas in my barley and I don't see any. I'd pull those out because this is for my rabbits, and I don't, oh, there's one. This is for my rabbits and I don't want them eating peas. You see that? They're not used to peas, so there. And then those holes on the bottom, I'm just gonna lift it up And you can see that so it just drains all the water out. I just put it on an angle like that for a moment, and all the water is in the bottom along with some broken seeds that didn't fit through. Now this I'm just gonna dump out. If it's, and you can water your plants with it or whatever if you don't want to waste it. This will be going onto our compost pile. Okay, so this is the one that we just added. So this is today's that we just started in the dish pan. This one is yesterday's, and you see maybe that there's a little bit more added green, that there's actually growth going. And then it just continues daily. There's the next one and the next one until, you know, day 6. I've got all this going. Now, a lot of people don't grow it for this long. They say that about day 5 is when you get the most nutritional value out of the grain. And so that would be like I sprout in the jar for a day, so day 5 is about here. And I just don't I can't bring myself to feed that. I want to give them the greens, and so I feed them up here. You need to watch out for mold, so every time you feed, you want to take a really good look at the roots, because you don't want any mold. You don't want to be feeding your animals mold. It will actually kill rabbits. So yeah, it's really great during the winter because you get to experience all of the lovely growth. Now, this is the way I do it here, and I'm on the Canadian prairies, and we are dry. And so I have to mitigate the dry air a little bit, especially in the winter with the forced air heat in the house. We just dry out so badly, like my hair gets all staticky and everything. So this is the one we just did today. I put this lovely, can't remember what they're called right now. It's obviously a towel, but I can't remember the type of towel. I just put it on, leave a little bit of an opening, it's usually a quarter or a third open, to help the evaporation to not be as great while it's starting out. After the first day, I don't worry about it because they are gaining roots and they're holding more moisture. And so that's the day 1, and we water them twice a day. And for watering them, I take them to the sink individually. I have a spray tap on my sink, so I spray the whole thing back and forth and this way and that way, and I wait till I see a little bit of water coming up, and then I drain it just like you saw before. I will see if I can do it just with this is my first time just using water. And so there's water in there, and once again I just lift it up, and the holes are on this side, so I'm just going to tip it, and I'm going to let the water drain out. I don't drain it dry, I just drain it until it's almost all dripping. Once again, that is because of my climate here, that we are dry. So if I let it drain completely dry, then I'm not going to get any growth on it. And I will empty that out. But this one here is I'm going to be feeding this one tomorrow. And you can see the roots coming out of the bottom there. And so when I water it, I actually sometimes have to grab the barley grass and pull it up to get it out of those holes so that I can actually drain the water. See, they're better now. So this is my finished growing fodder. I like it this tall just because I think it looks so pretty. I could probably feed it earlier, but this is pretty much the max that you can grow fodder until it's going to start needing some nutrients. The seed itself holds all the nutrients it needs to get to this size. It starts to get less nutrients for the animals. They start losing nutrients, like the seed, the plant start losing nutrients. And so everything is just kind of stuck together because of the root mass. So I'll just pull it out. This is what I do every morning to get it ready to feed to my rabbits. So look at that root mass. It just kind of all holds together. It's just beautiful. And the rabbits eat it all. They they like the seeds the most. So they go after the seeds and then they eat the greens, kind of the seeds and the greens at the same time. Depends on the rabbit. They kind of leave the roots for later, and they just, they eat them, but just not right away. And I just take this. It's so pretty. And so I have 9 rabbits, 9 breeders. So I just cut it into 9 pieces, which is like, you'll see. My kitchen scissors is what I usually use, but they have disappeared, both pairs. The beauty of having multiple children, things just disappear. So there's one. Kitchen shears work way better. But you do what you do, right? You do what you gotta do. And so I have 3 pieces, and I'm just going to turn it. And cut each of those 3 pieces into 3 pieces. And I've got my 9. So we try to throw that into each cage, but what happens is we open the cage and the rabbit comes and grabs it and runs to the back of the cage with it. I'm just kind of pushing a little bit on the roots to give it a little bit of a resistance so it's easier to cut. And they're not equal sizes, but we just feed the ones on the top, and it equals out over the days. Now you don't want to start them off with this much fodder because you will kill your rabbit. You need to start them slowly on fodder, like that much for a rabbit to start, and then you just double it every day, and you watch their poops and make sure that they're digesting it well and they're not getting diarrhea or anything. I also feed my rabbits pellets, so they so that their digestive bacteria will stay used to it, just in case there is a time when my fodder fails, then they can still have food. If you just feed them fodder, then you can't switch over to pellets just like that, because if you know rabbits, they like to die with a change of food. So yeah, that's pretty much all. They absolutely go nuts for it. Okay, so just a little quick recap and a few little additional bits of information. Now, I am on well water, so I don't know how well it will do on city water that's chlorinated and fluorinated. So if you're worried about that sort of thing, just kind of put some water in a pail and let it off gas for at least 12 hours. 24 would be better. That will help you with the chlorine, but not with the other additions that might be in the water. If you're having trouble with mold, you might want to try adding a fan to blow across the fodder, because then it just helps to helps get rid of that extra moisture. You want to be growing in a cooler temp, not at room temperature. That's a little bit too warm. You're going to be getting more mold that way. I have mine in my schoolroom, and that's just a little bit cooler. I'll say it's between 18 and 20 degrees Celsius. You want to make sure that you clean those seeds really well when you first get them in the jar. And you just want to get as much of that chaff and all of the seeds that aren't going to be producing for you. All the ones that float to the top, you want to get rid of those because they're going to mold, they're not going to grow. I've been reading that a lot of the nutrients, or it's the most nutrient dense at about 5 days worth of growth. I let it go a little bit longer because I like all of those beautiful green leaves. You don't need any additional special lighting. You can just don't grow it in the dark, but you don't need to add any extra additional lighting. I put the tray that I'm going to feed tomorrow in the window today. Does that make any sense? Just so that it can green up and get a little bit extra chlorophyll, but it doesn't need it. So when I feed out the feed that day, I then have a empty dishpan that I use. The dishpans are what I use for growing. So now it's empty, and now I have to clean it. And you want to clean that really, really well. Don't let anything remain. I'm not saying you need to use bleach, but use some hydrogen peroxide if you're having issues with mold. Just make sure that you get that really clean. I just use dish soap and water and a dishcloth, and I just scrub it really, really well, both the bucket it grows in and the drip tray. And as to the dishpan and whatever tray you're going to be using in order to grow your fodder, you want to make sure that that's food grade plastic. You don't want just like any plastic. You want a food grade plastic. And honestly, every time I go and I'm looking at plastic containers, I can't find a single one that isn't food grade. Even my storage containers are food grade. So let's see, it's that recycling symbol on the bottom, the 3 arrows going around in a triangle, and you want inside the numbers 1, 2, 4, or 5. Now barley greens, you can actually eat them yourself, but you need an actual juicer. I think it's called a champion juicer, and that can take all of the nutrients and all the chlorophyll and everything, put it into a juice that you can drink. We cannot digest the fiber in the barley. If you do that, then you can feed the seeds and the roots and everything out to your animals. Yeah, and chickens, they absolutely love sprouts at about 3 days. You got just very, very minimal green on it, but you have a lot of wonderful roots, and they go nuts for them, more than anything I've ever seen, except for maybe fresh veg or whatever, lettuces. But that's all I got for you today. Thanks so much, guys.